The following is a production of Infomed for the Practical Allergy Research Foundation. You're about to see some striking visual evidence of the effects of environmentally sick schools on students, parents, and teachers. The intensity of these reactions can vary from mild to very severe. Environmentally sick schools.
The outdoor air is less polluted in Los Angeles in the middle of summer than inside some of our buildings.
I would like to say that Christy is going to get well, but deep down in my heart, I don't know.
In my opinion, the #1 cause of poor academic achievement in schools is the school environment and the diet of the child.
No one wants to hear that anything is wrong. As far as the school is concerned, there's nothing wrong up there. They baked the carpet off, supposedly dried the carpet, the glue. As far as they're concerned, everything is okay. Well, our life isn't okay anymore. The whole thing is just upside down.
Five or 10 years down the line, schools and the environment will be worse. I hate to tell you that, but that's my feeling.
In a way, you're killing them. You are slowly killing these little children. I just get so emotional right now thinking about this. I get angry. Something has got to be done. This has got to stop.
The extensive pollution of today's environment has spread into every segment of society. One critical area that has been seriously affected by both indoor and outdoor environmental pollution is our schools. This pollution not only affects the ability of children to learn, but the health of some students and teachers has been adversely affected. Across America and throughout the world, students and teachers are presently at risk from environmentally sick schools. Doris Rapp, MD, was a board-certified traditional allergist for 18 years before changing her practice to environmental allergy. She is also a clinical assistant professor of pediatrics at the State University of New York at Buffalo. Dr. Rapp has published scientific medical articles, presented at national and international medical conferences, and created educational video and audio material, as well as a best-selling book for parents. Her commitment to the health of children has led her to the forefront of environmental allergy.
As a society, we have managed to pollute our environment to an absolutely unbelievable degree. We have polluted our air, our food, our water, our homes, our workplaces, and our schools, so that the schools are no longer environmentally safe. Children can't learn, they can't behave, they don't act appropriately. Teachers can't teach, and it's because of the various environmental factors inside the schools that are polluting them much more than the outdoors that we've heard so much about. What can we do about this? Well, let me explain. There's one basic concept that you have to understand, and this is called the barrel effect. Why is your child sick today and not tomorrow?
Think of your body as a barrel that will remain healthy if it is only partially empty, But if it is filled to the top, it will become ill. This helps to explain why someone can become ill at one time but not another, in spite of exposure to offending substances. For example, suppose you were exposed to a little dust and mold, but it was not enough to cause any difficulty because your barrel was still partially empty. But on another occasion, your barrel is filled to the very top because you have been exposed to too much of a combination of dust, molds, foods, pollen, or chemicals. When the level goes over the top, or your body is in a state of overload, you will become ill. If you can keep your total exposure below that critical level, you will remain well, even though you have been exposed to things that can bother you.
Every day in our office, we see patients or receive letters from families that are totally decimated because of environmental illness. The children can't learn, they misbehave, they feel sick all the time, and usually the parents are also ill. How can doctors figure out what's causing this problem? Well, there are some physicians who are trained in environmental medicine, and they can figure out the answers. They can show the mother that she's not a bad mother and she doesn't have a bad child, but she has a child who's ill because of certain environmental exposures. Let me take as an example, a child goes into a lavatory that's dusty, it's moldy, and it contains chemicals. How can the doctor figure out what's causing what? Well, it actually is very simple. The doctor can test with 1 drop of dust, and the dust may cause a headache and red earlobes. The doctor can check with 1 drop of a mold allergy extract, and that might produce a bellyache or problems thinking. The child can be tested with a drop of the chemical that's in the disinfectant or the deodorant, and the child may become too tired or too listless or unable to remember. In other words, we can actually produce the symptom or provoke the symptom doing what's called provocation neutralization allergy testing. Now, in addition, the doctor can give progressively weaker drops of the same solution that caused the problem, the dust or the mold or the chemical, and eliminate that symptom. That's the treatment dose. In other words, you can neutralize the symptom and you can use that treatment dose to treat the patient so the patient can then go into that bathroom after the youngster's been treated for dust and molds and possibly that chemical and no longer have difficulty. That's called provocation neutralization allergy testing. Specialists in environmental medicine and certain ear, nose, and throat specialists in particular know how to do this kind of testing. Now, I must admit that many doctors don't believe that this is possible. This is unfortunate. Usually these are physicians who haven't observed it or tried it. If they did, they would realize that you can do it over and over and over again. It appears that the human body is much smarter than we physicians. We don't understand everything about the body. If we can turn on the reaction and turn off the reaction in an office, that's exactly what the teacher sees in the classroom or the mother sees at home. It means to me that there's a cause and effect relationship, and this certainly shouldn't be discounted. When a child receives allergy extract treatment, in essence, we make their barrel bigger so they can tolerate more exposures before becoming ill.
How can you easily tell if your child has a school-related environmental illness? Repeatedly ask yourself, could your child's inability to act appropriately or think clearly be due to something inside or outside the school, or to something that was eaten or smelled? By checking the appearance, actions, behavior, and ability to write, you can easily tell if your child is reacting to some exposure. The pulse often increases in affected children, and if asthma is a problem, the ability to breathe can markedly decrease. These are called the Big Five. Check how your child looks, acts, writes, his pulse, and breathing. Look for red earlobes, dark eye circles, bags under the eyes, red cheeks, wiggly legs, nose rubbing. The writing can change in minutes from normal to illegible after exposure to a chemical, dust, molds, or eating an offending food. In many children, these 5 variables can pinpoint the cause of illness or an inability to learn.
What is it in schools that causes difficulty? Well, we all know about dust and molds and pollen, and if you eat certain foods, you can have difficulty. But the big thing that's causing major troubles today are chemicals. If they put a new carpet in your school, or they remodel a school or paint it or do something so your child's exposed to too many chemicals, your child can develop what's called a chemical sensitivity. And this means whenever your child is exposed to that chemical, your child will develop the irritability, the inability to think, the headache, the bellyache, whatever it is that happened when your child had that problem. The difficulty is that in time, the child develops what's called the spreading phenomenon. And this means that little bits of chemical exposures to all kinds of things that never caused trouble before, the smell of perfume, a fabric softener, putting gasoline in the car, any little odor will now trigger that child and cause that child to become ill. This is just a terrible, horrendous situation, and it's forcing many children and teachers to remain at home constantly because they can't be exposed to the ordinary world anymore. It's almost as if the barrel is always too full or right at the top level, so the slightest little thing triggers it off and you have illness. This is the dreaded spreading phenomenon, which is so common today among so many people who have chemical sensitivities.
School children are not the only unfortunate individuals who are seriously affected by environmentally contaminated schools. Nancy, a 4th grade teacher, also became profoundly ill with environmental illness, and the spreading phenomenon made her life almost unbearable.
When I first started with symptoms, I had a lot of dizziness and equilibrium problems where it was difficult walking. Then it turned into depression and not being able to get up in the morning, not being able to get dressed, not being able to go to work.
Nancy's life at that time presented one challenge after another. As she so clearly stated, she had
a lot of crying, a lot of headaches, a lot of just not being able to move, not being able to hold my head up, just total exhaustion. I would take a shower and then be on the couch for the rest of the day because I was worn out. Not having enough energy to go to the kitchen to get food. Total exhaustion.
During the past several years, while teaching at the same school, Nancy's sensitivities to chemical odors have increased to an alarming degree.
The odors that bother me are any types of perfume, Lysol, any types of cleaning products, cigarette smoke, car fumes, paint, turpentine. Tide and Bounce drive me right out the window. Anything that has a perfume smell, newsprint. As a teacher, I have to deal with printed sheets on the students, computer printed sheets. I can't even touch them. I can't have those printed sheets within 5 feet of my desk because the smell just sends me.
When Nancy was first seen at our center, I was truly surprised to find that a young teacher could be so environmentally sick. She had tics, these are little twitches in her face, and when she was exposed to a chemical such as perfume, she would have a total change in how she looked and acted. Her barrel wasn't full, it was overflowing.
The other problems in schools, per se, would be just from the kids. A lot of the teenagers and teeny boppers have a lot of perfumes on and aftershave lotions, which really are a problem for some people.
Here is Nancy reacting to a chemical called phenol.
I can't lift my head up. I don't know. I'm dizzy. My teeth hurt. My face is numb. My hands are cramped.
Phenol can be found in a variety of areas within a school. For example, disinfectants, cleaning agents, and insulation. This is exactly how Nancy is affected after spending time in her school classroom.
Teachers are just as susceptible, I think, in many cases as the children are. We're all prone to the consequences of indoor air pollution, whether they be natural substances like the molds that might grow inside buildings, or whether it be the chemicals that contaminate a lot of our modern buildings. The teachers are also susceptible.
I had a 4th grade student in my classroom who was also dealing with severe depression. In the middle of a lesson, she would put her head down, she would cry, she would say, "I can't hold my head up." She would say, she couldn't stop crying. I came back from lunch one day and she was curled up in the corner near my desk, not wanting to come out. She just cried and my heart bled because I knew what she was going through. That was me in a little body. And I am so grateful that I had that child in my classroom because I would have never gotten help for environmental illness.
That child was Marcia. This is 9-year-old Marcia reacting to an allergy extract made from a fluoride tablet. This family has been distressed for years because of the emotional trauma and financial hardship caused by repeated misdiagnoses.
Marcia's symptoms began when she was about 7 years old. We had just recently moved to this house and had gone to a pediatrician who felt that she needed to have fluoride supplements. And she began taking fluoride supplements, and in about a week she started to become progressively more sad. And after 30 days she was crying uncontrollably and shaking. So I removed the fluoride from her, and within 2 days she started to get better, although it probably took about 5 months before she seemed to be back to her normal self. That kind of reminded us of when she was an infant and she was crying in school a lot, and she couldn't make decisions. She couldn't even decide what to write a sentence about. Her handwriting got worse and worse, and she would just put her head down on the desk and cry and shake. You know, we became real concerned about what was going to happen. So we took her to a psychologist.
After meeting with the psychologist, her physician placed her on antidepressants. In spite of this, Marcia began to spiral into deeper depression.
Even though I had asked about an allergy, at that point the doctors claimed that it was impossible. They said that they had searched and asked other doctors, and other doctors told them it was impossible to be allergic to a pill, an antidepressant. So they finally convinced us that we had to do something. We could not care for the child. She couldn't walk, she couldn't eat, and she cried nonstop. So we placed her, according to the recommendation, in a psychiatric hospital for children, 250 miles from home. After she was there for a week or two, and the doctors at the psychiatric hospital didn't give her any medication, we began questioning what they were doing. But they had decided that this was not a chemical problem, this was totally an emotional problem, and that someone had abused her. And we were the chief suspects, that we had abused her. We repeatedly talked to them about allergies. They told us it was impossible that that could occur, and that what we had told them about fluoride never happened. Because they kept insisting it never happened, and we knew it did, we pursued our search. And the search led us to Dr. Rapp's book.
Many parents have indicated that their children learn better than ever before after they've had environmental medical care. The most exceptional example is Marcia. Her IQ went from way below normal, a 57 IQ, all the way up to 127, which is superior, during a period of 18 months after we found that, in particular, that she had mold and chemical sensitivities. How many other children aren't functioning at a level comparable to their ability because this illness is not being diagnosed and properly treated?
Marcia's life has completely turned around since she began her environmental medical treatment. Today, Marcia is a bright, popular young lady who is actively involved in all aspects of her school and her family life. She hopes to be a professional artist one day. That dream may become a reality because of the creativity that she so clearly exhibits in her drawings. In spite of all, Marcia's attitude remains positive.
Don't be afraid. It's not bad. It's not you. It's not your fault. Just try to deal with it, and if you can't, just seek help.
As for Nancy, her life remains a daily challenge, for she must constantly avoid the chemicals that make her ill. Her life and health have significantly improved because of her treatment and her intense desire to overcome her environmental illness.
I know I have no choice, but accepting it is much easier than being angry at it or denying it. And right now I just stress what I can do instead of what I can't do. And I do as much as I can, and when I have trouble, I walk away. But I'm not going to stop living my life for this illness.
There are 5 major allergenic substances which cause the vast majority of health problems in schools. They are dust, molds, foods, chemicals, pollen. An important point to emphasize is that many different parts of the body can be affected by everyday exposures. Environmental illness can cause much more than hay fever and asthma. It can affect the nervous system and brain, altering a child's ability to learn.
Dust is one of the major indoor air pollutants. We've all seen a shaft of light hit a room in such a way that you can see all these little particles in the air. This is what can cause a hay fever and asthma. In schools, the biggest problem are the dirty classrooms that are dusty, or the ventilation ductwork that hasn't been cleaned, properly maintained, the filters aren't changed. Dust is a major problem in many schools.
Dust, however, is a problem because I think in any institution the problem depends on the degree of attention to the problem that the cleaning staff employ. And I think secondly, in some schools where there is air conditioning, there has to be a proper maintenance scheme instituted for maintaining the cleanliness of the ducts.
I'm sure you can swallow.
I believe that molds and mold spores cause more problems than any other allergenic substance. You're all familiar with molds on bread and growing in your refrigerator, but I'm talking about the molds that are in the air on rainy days or during the rainy seasons. These molds, for some reason, cause much more than hay fever or asthma. Many times they affect how children or adults act and feel and behave. And some youngsters become hyperactive and irritable, others become suicidal and depressed.
It's a little bit strange because this is the same dose where he was pretty calm.
say when he doesn't get his own way, this is what he does.
I'll bite you so you bleed. Mama, give me my shoes. I will stab you.
Oh, I think the moles can have dramatic effects causing depression, can have dramatic effects sometimes on mood swings, very similar to what you can have sometimes with foods, such as milk or corn or wheat sometimes, in the right sensitive child we're talking about, not everyone.
Oh, there's just one day I remember just, feeling so upset and, just thinking, I don't know if I can take my life anymore. I want to die. I can't stand this feeling. I really can't stand this feeling.
In Nova Scotia, where I run a clinic there for the government, there have been probably, I think, 10 or 12 schools that have been shut down, and students evacuated from the schools because they have been found to be contaminated with mold. Now, mold can cause a whole host of physical and other problems, including the induction of asthma and behavioral changes. And the mold toxins that are made by the molds are particularly potent, and they affect the neurological system. And so all around, I think we're recognizing that there are real potential hazards to contaminated indoor air.
I'm going to give her 2 drops of diluted. Oh, no. Stacy, can I have the pencil, honey?
A lot of times you'll see weather conditions that'll also give problems for learning. For example, days just before rains, you may see a lot of people will get agitated or depressed, and then days when it rains, you may see the mold count going up very high, and children will have a problem with them.
All parents and teachers are familiar with classical typical allergies that cause hay fever and asthma and eczema, things of that sort. But foods sometimes cause unusual problems. They can change the behavior of a child, the way they act, the way they feel. They can cause a child to be hyperactive or too tired. And strangely, foods seem to alter how children look. Sometimes they have a spacey look, in which case they can't understand, they don't learn, and other times they have this frightening look, and they almost look demonic, and teachers and parents are afraid. When this happens, you should always say to yourself, what was eaten? What was touched? What did the youngster smell? It's frequently due to a food.
We always hear that the students must have a balanced diet and well-nourished meals, and they should start off with a good breakfast and then have a good lunch. And of course, the school lunch programs are famous in America because the people years ago wanted to assure that at least the kid had a good lunch. Of course, of talking to teachers and doing studies, we found that the worst time in the classroom is right after lunch. And of course, a lot of this is related to what the child gets for lunch. If he's getting a lot of sugared products, or he may get products to which he's sensitive, like wheat or corn or different milk products, and they may make this child either hyperactive or very sluggish. And many junk foods are now being served in school, which are high in sugar contents.
Pollen allergies are very common. We think of hay fever, we think of asthma, but we don't realize that pollen can affect how children act and feel and behave. Many children, for example, do very poorly at the end of the school year on their examinations because there's too much grass pollen in the air. And other children start the school year having difficulties and not feeling and acting correctly because of weed pollens and because of mold spores.
Well, I think one sees a lot of seasonal problems in the schools. One can see problems with pollens in the spring and fall, and actually Texas, you can see it in the winter. In the southern states, because we have a certain set of pollens that go all year, and they're different. I mean, they're different types in different seasons, and so these can cause kids a lot of problems. Actually, in Texas, you see what's called cedar fever, where they actually get fever and can get pneumonia from the pollen. So that's a thing one has to watch out. The other seasonal problems that we see is kids do pretty good while the windows are open in the spring and fall, but when it's all closed in the winter and there's not enough ventilation, that these kids can have problems just from that seasonal problem.
In the past, grass pollen caused this boy to act this way. This is no longer a problem since he's been treated for his grass pollen allergy.
Well, I think we see depression in the spring and fall. We see depression in the winter, and they're due to different things sometimes. If the kid's got a lot of runny nose and stuffed up nose and sneezing and maybe a little sinus problems, he may also get depressed. And this may be due to the increased pollen load in the spring and fall. We see it from ragweed. We see it from the trees and grasses and so on. And they can get quite depressed from this. In the winter, the depression usually is due to the heating, the gas heating or oil heating, you see, or even the closed up area where you get a lot of solvents they're exposed to.
He's
You want me to hold you like this? I can hold you.
Shut up!
For 18 years, I practiced traditional allergy, and I'm ashamed to admit that I missed food and chemical sensitivities repeatedly during that period of time because I really didn't appreciate that any area of the body could be affected by these types of exposures. Chemicals cause such devastating and remarkable reactions in our office that it's almost unbelievable.
I've got it right here.
Does he usually drill this whenever he has a reaction?
Yeah, get that gun before I pull your hair. One that there is get it! Yes. It is here. Okay.
Okay, it's right at the air vent.
All right. Ben, I've got it here for you. Okay. You can try it. Maybe it'll make you feel better.
Oh, Addie!
Okay, I want you to sniff that chemical, okay? That's what they use in the school on the mops. How does it smell? It smells awful?
Yeah.
What?
I already have a headache from that.
You have a headache from that little bit? The scope of environmental illness today is absolutely immense. This is not a national problem. It's a universal problem. There aren't a few schools that are environmentally sick. There are many schools that are environmentally sick. Every student and every teacher has the right to an education in a safe, clean, healthy classroom. It isn't fair to rob them of that opportunity. Some schools aren't affected very much, but other schools are virtual, ticking time bombs.
Since this all began, I think the worst thing that's happened is me having to go to another school and leaving my friends. Not being able to be with them, but next year I'll be able to be at the high school with them. And I hope it works out up there.
The fall of a couple of years ago, Jeffrey had problems with allergies. He was doing well. He was on allergy shots. he was doing extremely well. They were tapering his shots down, and then he went to school. They renovated the school, put new carpet in, a real toxic glue, and it was an air-conditioned school, which meant no fresh air, much fresh air was being brought in, and it just recirculated and kept building and building, more fumes kept building.
The school and health officials could find no significant problem with the quality of one school's indoor air, even though many of the students and teachers developed similar illnesses shortly after their school was renovated. Jeff was an active, healthy 13-year-old boy who suddenly found his life turned upside down. It all began in September 1992, when his school was renovated and new carpets were installed. His parents began to notice drastic changes in how their son looked, acted, and felt. He developed such constant headaches and extreme fatigue that he could no longer engage in normal sports activities.
There was open house one night, and I had mentioned Jeffrey being sick because he doesn't miss a lot of school or complain. And I couldn't understand what was going on with him. And they told me that they noticed a lot of teachers, well, in fact, one had left because she lost her voice, another one was having neurological problems, and several of them that were still there were not feeling well and were leaving their windows open even if it was raining and cold outside. And they said that they believed it was from all the renovations. And I had known they put carpeting in because I was there a few days before school when there was a roll of carpeting that hadn't even been put down yet. But at the time, I didn't think anything of it. But then after they told us about all the people starting to get sick, and even they were noticing the children not feeling well at that point, that it clicked. That must have something to do with why Jeffrey was so sick.
When I went back to school, the air was like really heavy, and it just hit me, and made me really tired. And after a while, it just started giving me headaches and stomach aches.
How do you feel, Jeff? How do you feel, honey?
Sleepy.
How's the rest of you feel?
Okay.
Anything bother you any place?
No.
One of the things that really concerned me when Jeff's parents came to see me was one statement that they made. Normally this child engaged in sports and had a heck of a good time. And after that exposure, when he started school, a fall when the school was contaminated, this youngster would come home, he was totally exhausted, he'd collapse on the floor and cry because he couldn't play ball.
Started having headaches, belly aches, and eventually he started getting dizziness and nauseous feeling, and it led to diarrhea and eventually fatigue. But we just thought this was a normal going back to school when the children pass the flu bug back and forth, and eventually it goes away.
Jeffrey was a normal, healthy teenage boy 2 years ago, and then when all those renovations were done, it just wiped out, like it wiped out his immune system.
Jeff has been ill for a very long time. He's better now than he was before, but he's not nearly as well as he was before the exposure. How long will it be before he's back to normal? Or will he ever be normal?
No one wants to hear that anything is wrong. As far as the school is concerned, there's nothing wrong up there. They baked the carpet off, supposedly dried the carpet, the glue. As far as they're concerned, everything is okay. Well, our life isn't okay anymore. The whole thing is just upside down.
Well, we know that sick building syndrome is happening more and more. I see hundreds of children who are affected by the indoor air quality. They have problems with their learning. They have problems with their behavior. And I think that the teachers can see the changes that come upon the children as a consequence of sick building.
I'm just worried what's going to happen to Jeffrey in the future when Mom and Dad aren't around anymore. Is he going to be able to handle his own situation, his own life? Right now, he has us to depend on, but years down the road, what's going to happen?
Well, he's also been deprived of the last 2 years of being just a normal teenage boy. Now he has to worry about, gee, can I go do this, or am I going to have to be sick tomorrow, and is it worth it? And he shouldn't have to be worrying about that. If he wants to go swimming and have a good time with friends, or if he wants to go to a ball game or a bike ride, he should be able to do that. He shouldn't have to be spending his time weighing the pros and cons. You know, do I want to be sick just so I can go have an hour or two fun with my friends, or do I want to just stay home in the house and not be with my friends, which is where I really want to be? It's not fair.
We feel the school has robbed him of at least 2 years of his life, and how many more years are they going to rob?
Because there's no answer to that. We don't know how many more years. Is it going to be forever, or is there going to be a miracle and tomorrow he's going to be fine? We don't know. Jeffrey doesn't know, and he shouldn't have to worry about it.
I'm worried about my future because I want to get into marine biology, and getting there, I have to go through science classes and labs in college, and there's going to be a lot of chemicals and stuff, and it's going to be really tough to try to get through it without getting sick. I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but I'll have to try.
The impact of environmental illness can be manifested as headaches, fatigue, leg aches, joint aches, nausea, and problems learning. The long-term intellectual, emotional, and social ramifications of undetected environmental illness can truly adversely alter the course of the lives of certain youngsters.
Reactions that occur after chemical exposure can last anywhere from just a few seconds, a few minutes, to years. And of course, the problem is one needs to get them away from the exposure immediately with the hope of that you can prevent this from becoming a long-term problem.
Prior to September 1992, we lived a normal American life. Go, do as we please. Just have good old time as a family. Eat whatever we want to eat. Wear whatever we want to wear. But then when Christy started going to school in September of 1992, they had not finished some renovations they had done at the school. They had laid down some new carpet with some very strong adhesive. They had added a new room. The new cupboards were installed. They put isocyanate insulation in the roof, which, as Christy was opening the doors in the morning for the teachers, some of the debris from this would land upon her head, so much that several times she had to go and wash her hair before school started. One other thing they were doing, they were using pesticides for control of ants in the kitchen area. In one of Christy's classrooms, there was a couple of them, there was natural gas leak. There was also open sewers. Probably there were other things that happened, and as a result of this, our lives changed drastically. Sorry.
Dr. Bill Ray has treated hundreds of students and teachers who have been exposed to toxic school environments.
In another instance, they put on a roof on a school, and they told the kids they don't have to worry, it won't bother them, but don't park their cars in that area of the school because it would damage the paint on the cars. And of course, once they started putting this roofing material on, we saw that, again, a high percentage of the class, over 50%, immediately started reacting. They were coughing, or they had fatigue and brain dysfunction and so on. So they had a lot of problems. Just recently, I've seen two teachers, both biology teachers, that knew they weren't doing too well in their classrooms, and this turned out to be mold from the heating ducts and preservatives. But the thing that brought preservatives, I'm talking about things like formaldehydes and phenols, where they were pickling the biology animals. And what we found was again, they were putting on new roofing material, and this seeped in, and this was the final thing that incapacitated these teachers.
Unfortunately, I was not the only student that was having troubles with the exposures that we had at the school. I saw 2 of my teachers literally fall apart in front of us. And at first we were like, the school couldn't have done it because they just wouldn't have. But as the facts started to add up, it seemed that the logical choice was things that were happening at the school.
The environmental pollutants present in the air in one school after some renovations affected not only a significant number of the students, but also caused serious health problems in a number of teachers. The installation of a new carpet and the use of carpet adhesive during school hours was obviously one major contributing factor.
I personally believe the problem in my classroom and even the hall that I was in was the glue from the carpet. They say carpet was bad too, but I got to the point that every breath I took, every time that I would swallow, all I could do was smell and taste the glue, and it just got this putrid.
Even when you were home?
When I was even at home, I got to the point that I had so much toxins in my system that I ingested from breathing that I would have burning and hot spots throughout my entire body. I would have tingling spots. I'd wake up in the middle of the night with my head, my feet, I mean all parts of my body, my anatomy was just literally burning. And I know it was the toxins in my body. I know my body so well. I'm an athlete. I mean, I run, I play tennis, I do everything sports-minded. When I got sick, the whole school just kind of shook their head because it was in utter disbelief.
If the school has carpet, the glues may be a problem, the padding may be a problem, the carpet itself could have formaldehyde in it. It could be a synthetic carpet that would emanate gases from this that would have problems.
When I first was exposed, my right arm went numb, exposed to chemicals. After 2 weeks in the school that I was in, I could hardly hold a piece of chalk in my hand or a pencil or do much writing. As I told you before, I was losing my memory. My coordination was kind of going. I was unable to really even write lesson plans.
This teacher's illness prompted Dr. Rapp to refer him to Dr. Ted Simon at the Dallas Brain Imaging Center.
I think one of the big problems in learning disabilities and learning difficulties is separating what's physical from what is psychiatric from what is psychological. Whether or not there is a crisp separation can be controversial, but certainly the fact that we can see objective physical changes in these brains as compared to normal brains may help the patient to get the attention that he or she deserves. We use radioactive tracers to look at the function of the brain, to make images that portray how the brain really works. These images are quite easy to distinguish both the normal and the abnormal. So easy, in fact, that I'll bet some of the janitors in the schools can make the diagnosis. In establishing where the abnormalities in the brain imaging come from, one could look at some of these patients that come in with very minimal findings, if any findings at all, and are then exposed to the material that makes them clinically sick. And afterward, their brain image looks dramatically abnormal. We have any number of patients like that.
Art's brain image showed that he had significant changes in his brain that were compatible with a chemical exposure. The images on the left depict a normal flow of blood in a brain. The teacher's image on the right shows the obvious alteration in the blood flow after he was purposely exposed to an allergy extract prepared from the air in his school. The red color is spotty by comparison, indicating an alteration in the blood flow, which would affect the function of the brain. Christy attended the same school and was exposed to the same allergenic substances and chemical pollutants as the teacher. Eventually, this young lady was also referred to the Dallas Brain Imaging Center. The results of her brain scan showed less severe but definite abnormalities as indicated by the reduced blood flow and irregularities on the outer surface of the brain.
The school has provided the home teaching for us, but as to any responsibility of what has happened, I haven't heard. I haven't heard them say. I just like them to say they're sorry. I don't want to say I'd like one of their kids to go through this because this has not been fun. But I would just like them to tell us that, you know, this did happen. Some kind of apology just to admit, you know, what has gone on, that this actually has happened, that we're just not a bunch of crazy people. I'd like them to help us out with some medical bills that the insurance company's not paying for anymore. There's probably a lot more that we can even do here in the home, but we don't have any money to do anything more. It's just almost week by week anymore as to, you know, what we can do for Christy. I would like to say that Christy is going to get well, but deep down in my heart, I don't know. Some days seem very bright, and other days, sorry. Some days we're going along, especially after she goes out and has an exposure. I just think she's never going to get any better.
I always kid the teachers in saying that, like submariners, you deserve, you know, hazardous pay, because we see so many school teachers who seem to be environmentally ill. And when we analyze why they're ill because of the tremendous contamination within the school system.
Sandra was ill for years until she finally realized that the cause was directly related to the pollution in her classroom. Fortunately, her school officials finally agreed to make some necessary changes when a student also became ill. The result is that both teacher and student are now considerably improved. This is Sandra's story.
About 5 years ago, I was transferred into another room to teach in. I had been teaching 5th and 6th grade and was going into 1st. And when I got in the room, I noticed about October, I started to get an upper respiratory infection. I was treated for it. By February, I was sick again. This continued for about 4 years. The previous teacher who'd been in the room had severe headaches, often had to lay down behind the desk to try to help alleviate it. As I stayed in the room, I was sick every fall, and I would continue to be sick. Upper respiratory, laryngitis, pharyngitis, pleurisy, any type of upper respiratory infection is what I ended up with. Until finally my doctor said that he couldn't treat me anymore, that I had to go to a specialist. And this is when I decided to go to an environmental specialist.
Sandra is another example of how quickly and seriously ill a patient can become when they have environmental illness. One whiff of a chemical, a drop of a chemical in their arm, and they can change dramatically in just a few seconds.
Okay, tell me where you don't feel good. Okay, all right. Lungs, you can breathe? Okay, all right. Okay. Okay. Okay, all right, okay.
I'm very tight in my
chest. Okay, all right.
How you doing?
Oh, Pat, I feel a lot better. A lot better. My voice is clear. I don't have that seizing feeling in my chest, and I just feel kind of relieved.
If a person has hay fever due to pollen, no one assumes that that person has a psychological difficulty, and they aren't referred to a psychologist. But if a young student or a teacher acts in an inappropriate manner or has an emotional problem related to school, chances are excellent that they'll be referred to a psychologist, and no one will even consider the fact that maybe some exposure within the school, some chemical or dust or molds, are affecting the brain. In other words, some patients, the lungs might be affected and they get asthma, but in other patients, it's the brain that's affected and they act in an inappropriate or a different manner. And to make it even worse, these chemicals can at times even damage the brain, either on a temporary or a permanent basis.
I was told that psychosomatic illnesses can make a person behave this way, until I finally got angry. I said, look, we've had enough. I said, take a look at me. I've got circles down to here. I can't breathe. I can't talk. I'm flushed. And you're telling me I have psychosomatic illnesses? Take a look. This isn't about me. This isn't about one person. This is about children. I teach these little bodies. What about their lungs? What about their respiratory illnesses that can attack them? You better do something. Well, after arguing and arguing, he finally decided to call in an environmental specialist and an air quality, I don't know if it's a controller, or someone who came in and checked the air. After being with me for approximately 15 minutes, he went back and he told the principal that this lady is not playing a game, that she's really sick. He told how I was flushed in the face, how my breathing was accelerated when I was in the room.
Sandy just received an injection.
I don't know what it is. I seem to be feeling okay. Doesn't seem to be anything wrong with me right at the moment. But I guess Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the little lamb would go. Followed her to school one day. That was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school.
Is this what happens to you when you walk into your classroom?
Yes, this is what happens to me when I walk into my classroom. Do you want me to keep talking or?
Yes.
Okay, it's easiest when I recite a poem. So I'll do Mary. Had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow. Everywhere that Mary went, the little lamb would go. It followed her to school one day, which was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school.
The significance of what you've just seen cannot be overstated. Fortunately, there's a rapidly expanding group of environmental specialists throughout the whole world who now recognize and treat this illness.
The problems that we find in schools are predominantly due to the cleaning materials and to the fact that they're now putting carpets into schools, which is, I think, deplorable. At one time, the schools were kept clean. They had hardwood floors or parquet flooring and maybe sometimes even concrete or tiled floors. They thought that this was too noisy and started putting carpets into the schools. And I think that this was the most retrograde step because at the same time they also enclosed the buildings for heat conservation, and it's been a tremendous setback.
Finally they came in and they found out that only 2 of the vents in our whole school were working. These vents had been closed down for probably almost 20 years. Whenever we went into the crunch for energy and to save money, they had closed all of these vents. They had never opened them. So here we were breathing that same air, those same toxins, year after year after year.
A drop of an allergy extract prepared from a school carpet can reproduce many of the symptoms noted by sick students and teachers. The adverse effects of exposure to certain carpets can be documented by scientific studies at the Anderson Laboratory located in West Hartford, Vermont. Their facility specializes in evaluating indoor air quality and testing the health effects of various products in relation to laboratory mice.
The use of carpets in schools, particularly in the elementary and younger grades, are suspect because of the tracked in dirt, because of the toxicity we've seen, because of the dust mites and dust mite feces causing allergy problems, because of the fact that they can harbor mold with moisture if they're ever damp, gotten moisture in them. And all those reasons, the fact that you have a high surface area product that is going to hold on to whatever it's exposed to, and going to re-emanate those fumes and respirable particles when agitated, is going to be a situation that's going to should make people nervous, and particularly when you coincide that with the higher asthma rates that we've been seeing in schools, and with the increased learning problems that kids are having in schools.
Specially bred laboratory mice are placed in a precisely designed isolation chamber. A thermometer is placed in the test chamber to ensure that the air is maintained at the proper temperature.
The mice are now in their head-only position and ready for exposure to the carpet emissions. Let's go.
Next, high-definition microphones are connected above the chamber for each mouse. These microphones monitor the respiratory rate and breathing patterns. The square glass and Teflon chamber behind the mice holds the carpet sample, which is maintained at a specific temperature. Then purified zero-grade air is blown over the carpet sample, so this air is forced directly into the test chamber which houses the mice. The mice are exposed to 4 separate one-hour sessions of carpet air. The respiratory rates are monitored on a graph.
We are now monitoring the mice during the baseline period. There are 4 channels, each one representing one of the mice. The respiratory rate, channel 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we've already seen in the baseline period some severe pulmonary problems in mouse 1 and mouse 2. We're also seeing some sensory irritation here. What we're looking for is a change in the breathing rate and the change in the breathing pattern. This tells us that the mice are having both sensory irritation, which in humans is eye, nose, throat, upper airway problems, headache, fatigue, and the pulmonary problems are asthma-like symptoms. And we see that in the mice breathing, and it correlates very well to human exposures.
After exposure, the mice are put through a series of exercises to test their motor skills. In this case, you will see what happens when mice were exposed to a carpet sample obtained from a school in which numerous students and teachers became ill. After only 2 one-hour exposures, the test mice show evidence of both nervous system and motor damage. A healthy mouse easily climbs a tilted screen. This mouse has obvious paralysis after exposure to the air blown over a sample of school carpet. In the reach and grab test, a healthy mouse holds on to the screen. In contrast, the mouse exposed to the school carpet fails this test. Healthy mice will never remain upside down. They instinctively and quickly turn over. This is called a righting reflex. After exposure to the school carpet air, this exposed mouse is very sick. It cannot turn over. Not all test mice survive 4 one-hour exposures to school carpet air. This mouse died after breathing air blown over a carpet sample which came from a classroom. If these tests with carpet samples have this kind of effect on mice, should we not be more concerned about the potential health risks in children and teachers?
I think about these little people that we teach. What are we doing to them? We affect their breathing. We affect their thinking processes. These are children who could probably be average or above average students, and here they are, listless. They can't study. They're fidgety. They're bouncing off the walls. They tell you, I don't care. What are we doing? We have to think about these children. We have to think about their small lungs and their capacity. We have to think about just something simple like spray that you wash the toilet with or the sink. What are you doing to them? We are hurting them. We are putting toxins into their bodies. This has got to stop. I don't know how I can make it clear enough. In a way, you're killing them. You are slowly killing these little children. I know what it did to me, and I know that I would have probably been in bed. I know now when I am exposed to smoke or chemicals, I know how sick I get. I just get so emotional right now thinking about this. I get angry. Something has got to be done. This has got to stop. I hope that some of you that are out there or that you watch this, you've got to know that this isn't a game. People People don't do this because they want attention or it's the disease of the week. You've got to do this because you are making people like us sick. And we can't go on. You affect our family life. You put a financial burden on us. You have to make us change things and tear up the way we live because you don't want to give up your toxins or you're making money with this chemical or this cleaning agent. Please stop doing this to our earth and to our children. Please see what it does to people and stop it now.
One crusader in the fight for environmentally clean classrooms is a Canadian mother named Karen Cremasco. Her son Daryl was unable to learn effectively or behave at school because of environmental illness. Fortunately, Karen's perseverance in relation to the clean classroom issue paved the way to not only help Daryl, but many others.
He had many problems right from in utero, when he was hiccuping when I was pregnant, when I carried him. He had colic, he had night terrors, he had colds constantly, ear infections, constant runny nose, a bit of asthma, and was not well, hyperactive and angry behavior. And the first time I saw the videotapes at a Waterloo board meeting that Dr. Rapp spoke, I saw those videotapes and I cried because there on that screen was my son. And for the first time, I realized that he could be helped, that there was something wrong, and it was allergies that was causing this behavior.
I want to do it.
Daryl.
Not!
Come on. Come on, I can't read it. You have to copy it over. If you scratch it out, then I can't read it when you scratch it out.
I don't care.
Come on, you copy it over then.
Daryl's history of allergies goes way back to infancy and when he was a toddler. Because it wasn't recognized and it wasn't appropriately treated, this child went on to the typical behavior and learning problems that we see in so many children. Many of these could have been prevented with earlier treatment.
Daryl's visits to Dr. Rapp's office revealed extreme sensitivities to chemicals and common allergenic substances in his school and at home.
At that point, then I decided to start telling our story because there were other kids who had the same problem. I know we are not the only family who has this. I showed videotapes, I did a presentation just to a parent-teacher organization, and I also got a seat on what we call in Canada a Special Education Advisory Committee. It's a committee that helps children with special needs. So I started to rub shoulders with the people, the administration and the board, and I realized that the board is doing the best they can with what they have at the time. And they're only trying to do their job. So I started to give them information, gradually give them more and more information. And when they saw the videos of Daryl, they realized I wasn't just overreacting and being emotional. They could see that this child had a real problem because when we did the changes in the classroom, he got better. He was able to sit and concentrate and learn.
We get mothers calling saying that my child was an A student and is now dropped to a C student. And we had another instance of a courthouse, not a school, but a courthouse where the employees, the adults, had a problem with the indoor air and they were losing their ability to concentrate.
What drove Karen Cremasco to become an advocate against sick schools in her community?
The change from parent to advocate came about when they did construction in Marden School, in his home school, and they put ceiling beams in that contained formaldehyde. And we couldn't understand why his behavior became so silly and he couldn't concentrate. So I showed the videotapes to the school, to the principal, and showed information like pulses, like activity scores, samples of handwriting before and after, so that I had documented evidence to the school board, to the principal. And when I showed that to them and the videotape before and after a reaction, then we could see, the school could see this was definitely what was causing the problem.
The school that decided to make some changes in the classroom for Daryl and other students like him was the Taylor Evans School in Guelph, Ontario. The officials at this school designed a special eco-classroom, which is free of everyday common allergenic substances and chemicals. Mary Ann, who also has sensitivities, is the teacher in the eco-classroom. She is convinced of its benefits.
I've seen superb results for the children and myself. I've had children who came in at the beginning of the year who could basically, as far as education goes, barely read at a grade 1 level and be able to achieve to a grade 3 level in that period of time. That's happened for at least 3 of the children. 1 child was already working at an appropriate level, but the other 3 were substantially below where they should have been. And I've seen great gains as far as that goes academically. 1 student had severe behavior problems, and I've seen great gains as far as that goes too.
This is just one of many success stories which illustrates what can happen when a parent becomes involved.
It is so important for parents to get involved because parents know their children best. Parents know what their children are capable of. You know, these children, I think, are like oysters. You have this hard, crusty shell, and inside there's this pearl that is your child. And I hope that every parent fights for that pearl, because that pearl is who their child is. And I will never give up on my child. If there, on either of my children, if there is some treatment that works, whether it be environmental medicine or another form of alternative health care, and it's working, go for it. And I will not accept the second best for my son and my daughter. I want them to be the best that they can be.
Some school systems in the Canadian province of Ontario are years ahead in the development of clean classrooms for environmentally ill students. One exemplary district is the Halton school system just outside of Hamilton, Ontario. The school officials there have established a portable eco-classroom that is capable of maintaining a clean environment at all times. Dr. Daniel Dalton supervises Halton's program.
Many of the students, if it was not for the portable, would not be able to attend school. They would be perhaps receiving some kind of tutoring at home, but on a much less level. So just you might say for some kids it makes a difference between whether or not they are achieving at all and achieving well. Our results have been very positive in the few years that we've had the portable, and that we've seen the performance level go up in terms of the amount of schoolwork that these children can attend to and their level of achievement in the programs.
Academically, there's a real benefits for students who are using the portable in that they are attending school more often, and when they are at school, the ability for them to listen to lectures and understand material is far better if they are able to use the portable to offset their use of the regular school. In that if they come into the portable for a break, they find, and I find from their performance, that they are able to attend better and understand things better. They're clearer.
The parents have a very significant role to play in the services and the programs that we've developed in Halton. It's a partnership program. It's one of shared responsibilities. One of the very first things we develop is a relationship with the parent, and in particular we're interested in what kind of modifications parents are making in their homes. And some of them, as you know, have spent thousands of dollars trying to accommodate the child in the home. And when we see that kind of effort made by a family and the way in which they have accommodated the child, that gives a lot more credibility and a lot more emphasis on the part of schools to make similar changes. So the parent is a partner, and I would say, to be honest, a leadership role with that partnership, because they know their child better than we do.
If I can make one argument for having environmentally clean classrooms in every school board, it would be that by using environmentally clean classrooms, we enable every student, including hypersensitive students, the opportunity to achieve their very best academically.
In the future, I guess, if I had my wish, I would like to believe that there wouldn't be a need for classrooms such as this. I think our society, our culture as a whole, is just at the very beginning of looking at indoor air quality and the effects that it has on people. I don't think that anything that we're doing here is that extravagant or impossible to provide, and certainly is something that all children would benefit from. So in the future, with our construction, our design, and probably our more sensitivity to maintenance kind of materials that we use, would make it a safer environment for all students.
Another exceptional school system that is the vanguard of clean classrooms in Ontario, Canada, is the Kitchener-Waterloo school system. This district has had functioning, environmentally safer classrooms for the past 10 years, and the level of their success is commendable. Many of the education specialists there provided insight about their progressive attitude and accomplishments.
This whole concept has been very successful. We have had nothing but praise from the people who have been involved in it. We have seen the successes that the students have had, that the teachers have experienced. The results have been the students who have graduated and gone on to other work in life that couldn't have possibly done so without it.
What it tells us is that students feel better, enjoy school more, go to school more often, get better marks when they are involved in eco programs. And they attribute that primarily to the working with these eco teachers and the special type of room that they're accommodated in. And the parents are making the same observations. They sense that their children are feeling better, that they are getting better marks and attending school more regularly, and are able to participate more regularly in extracurricular activities as a result of this type of support offered in this county.
When I was in the clean classroom, the most important thing, I think, was being treated like a normal person. You get really alienated when you have these type of problems, and you don't always get the full effect of high school. It was the being around the other people and the experience of, you know, being able to go out or going into a cafeteria. I was able to monitor that step by step, whereas before, if I had gone into a cafeteria, somebody would have been carrying me out. Education-wise, I got to learn. I wasn't just reading it from a book and trying to remember what I had read. I was experiencing it on a whiteboard, not a chalkboard. And I had teachers there to answer my questions.
In Waterloo County, we've had an excellent working relationship with our custodial staff, with our maintenance staff, with the teaching staff in the schools. When they find that there might be a reaction, an allergic reaction by some young people in the school or on a general basis, we've got a lot of cooperation in taking a look at the types of cleaning fluids that we've used. Many custodians, rather than using intense cleaning fluids, now do the majority of the cleanup with soap and water. It does a good job. It might take a little extra work, but it certainly does create a different atmosphere than using highly volatile cleaning fluid in an area.
I was fortunate to be the principal of Kitchener-Waterloo Collegiate in Kitchener, Ontario, which opened up the first environmentally clean classroom in Canada. Before that, we had offered only for students who had 20th century illness 3 hours per week, which cost us $2,000 per year per student, and provided very little satisfactory education for them. With the environmentally clean classroom, we were able to accommodate 8 to 10 students per year, full-time, not only within the classroom, but that allowed them to also participate in other parts of the school. And we were able to do that for a total initial cost of about $10,000. So that in the first year, we saved more than $6,000 from what it would have cost us to provide 3 hours per week. And in the second year, we saved at least $16,000 for 8 students in each subsequent year. So that not only educationally, but economically, this has been a sound investment for us.
I have children who do have allergies, and I hope that they'll be able to have the clean classroom, and that all the children of the future are going to be able to have clean classrooms where they're able to learn without the extra distractions, because learning's hard enough to do without any health problems.
In spite of powerful special interest groups, the bottom line must remain a genuine concern about the health and learning ability of our children.
In my opinion, the indoor air quality in schools is the #1 problem in schools. And I think if we would clean up our schools, we'd find that we'd have a lot smarter, happier, creative kids. And I think we need to do it.
This whole issue of indoor air pollution in relationship to schools has implications for our entire society. If we can't look after our children and provide an opportunity for them to learn and to achieve what they're capable of doing, that's a sad commentary. I think that we have to provide for these kids to have a safe environment in which to learn and grow.
As you've seen, many teachers and students are adversely affected by things that they've been exposed to in environmentally sick schools. You've seen how you can recognize which children might be affected. You are able now to figure out which area of the school might be causing trouble and what it is in that area that might be making that individual ill. Your next problem is, what can you do about it? Well, obviously, if a school has an area, a localized area, that is causing some sort of sickness, you have to get rid of the dust or the molds or the chemicals. We would hope that eventually we would have entirely safe, healthy schools, but as a starter, we'll have to follow Canada. They made slight changes which were most gratifying and definitely cost-effective. And as time goes on, we should be able to make more changes that would help these students and teachers. The second big problem is, who is going to pay the bills for the students and the teachers who are already ill? No one wants to face up to that responsibility. The insurance companies tend to renege right along with everybody else. And many of these individuals, as you've seen, are so sick that they cannot wait 2 or 3 years for someone to say, we should be helping you. Their illness is progressing, and can we afford to let it progress for another 2 or 3 years before we do anything about it? You as an individual, as well as your legislator, need to work together in order to pass laws that have some teeth in them. We want laws that can be enforced, not guidelines or suggestions. We need laws that won't be delayed, that won't be disregarded. Next, we have to think about the fact that we need a medical center someplace where these children can be seen, the teachers can be seen, where we can educate the doctors, the educators, the parents, the teachers, the social workers, and various groups so that they recognize environmental illness as a medical problem that's rampant in our society today. If we do this, we can turn the situation around. We can help many of these youngsters and teachers get back on track so their lives are on course again. We have to do this not only for the teachers, not only for the students, but for us as a nation. We have to make these changes, and we have to do it now. We really can't change what's happened in the past, but we can do a lot about what's going to happen in the future. Just think about the children and the teachers that you've just seen. We've got to do something, and we have to do it now.